Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the midweek huddle session. Um, as I said, you're doing really well. Just I was Monday was really tough for me because I had so many classes to grade, and I wanted to get your work back to you as soon as I could. So this week will be a little more challenging because I'm currently teaching 7 classes and I have essays in every class this week. So in next week, once you write your essay for this week, I will probably be a little behind. I won't be able to get everything back by Monday, but you should have it back obviously before Friday, but hopefully no later than Wednesday of next week. So I want to talk a little bit today about essay writing, and I want to take you on a little journey with me. So everyone's logged into Nearpod, correct? Okay, so you should be seeing on your screen, great, thanks Jess, you should be seeing the title. If you're not seeing that, you could unmute and tell me. Awesome. So maybe a lot of this you know, and maybe some of this will be a little bit unfamiliar to you. So where are we? Somebody unmute and tell us. What are we looking at?
Egypt.
Nice. And what do we see?
Pyramid.
So when you think about a pyramid, because I like to think about writing as constructing, what are the physical attributes of a pyramid? Think about the one you just saw, which is also located right up here. You can type your answers right in the screen there and they'll pop up. You can obviously put more than one response. Okay. So handmade, man-made, old, I don't like to think of your... Hi, you're in the class. Who's this?
Every week I have to check with Big Sean.
Brianne? Okay. So, I'm sorry about that. Handmade, man-made, old starts with a large base and climaxes at a single point at the top and has lots of bricks and is a sanctuary. All good responses. Jessica is a little closer to what we're looking for when we relate this to writing. Whoa. Our pyramid is now upside down. And here's where I want to introduce the concept of your introduction, which is so important. I can't stress this enough to you, that when you are reading anything, excuse me. Hi, Brianna.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
Good. I don't know.
Okay. That's okay. You can see. Can you see my screen?
Now I can.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to do this. Open up another tab and type in nearpod.com. And then you're going to put this code in. And do you see the code right in the upper left corner? Okay. And then I'm just going to ask you to mute your audio. Everyone's on mute. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about the inverted period in the introduction. As I was saying, it's so important when you open a book, when you're reading a newspaper, uh, even when you're reading an email. That introduction is worth more probably than what's in the body, because it can really make you close the cover of that book or X out of that email or even go to another article in the newspaper. So what you want to do is you want to think about your introduction as having a very broad top but working down to a fine point. Let's look at that in more detail. Why is an essay introduction like an inverted pyramid? What do I mean by that? Why do you have to have a broad top and a point right at the end? You can type your response right in the area provided. Any other responses? Okay, so you can see what your peers said. You want to introduce what you're talking about and then draw it to the at the end of the bottom. You're kind of getting it. You get attention and then give them, I think Kevin meant to write finale, to get the reader's attention right at the beginning, maybe because it's shorter than most parts that you write. This is true, Brianna. And then to grab the reader's attention and make them want to read it. Okay, but why a broad base and then working down to a fine point? Let's take a look at that. Your introduction should only be 3 to 5 sentences. You don't want to get into any more depth than that. That's a general rule. Can you write 6? Will I take off points if you write 6? No. Um, will I take off points if you write 2? Yes, because you missed one of the steps. So let's take a look at what an introduction is. It has a very broad base, and that broad base equates to being very general. This is where your hook is. This is where you gain the reader's attention, which many of you said in the last exercise that we did together. So you're going to gain their attention by creating a hook, and we're going to look at what a hook is and how you can become better at writing those. Then you're going to start narrowing down. And you're going to start thinking about, well, I need to get to this thesis here. And the thesis introduces the main arguments of your essay. The thesis is the single most important sentence in your essay because it really tells the reader not only what you're going to talk about, but why it's important that they read this. So you start in very general terms talking about something. Then you have what I call a bridge right in the middle. General information about the topic, but you're starting to put it together to get down to this very fine point. Okay. We're going to watch a short video. We're not going to watch the whole thing on how to build a better hook. Can you all hear that? Somebody tell me.
It's very low.
It's very low. It's on your device, so you should be able to turn up your volume and hear it.
You're inviting them in to crawl out of their primordial ooze and evolve their way of thinking. If you begin with just a whimper, no one's going to want to come along for the ride.
Kevin, any better?
No, my speaker's all the way up.
Anybody else having the same problem?
Yes.
Okay. If Kevin, try this for me. If you unmute your side, will you hear it better? I'm going to play it now.
There are many ways to open your recipe, or to cook an egg, or to skin a cat.
It's a little better, but not much.
Okay. All right. I don't know why that's happening because it's playing perfectly fine here. I'm going to try one more thing.
Although, if you're the type of person in cat,
Better.
writing a grabby intro sentence is the least of your problems. The main thing you want to do is give your reader some context. Ask yourself, why are you writing this report? Because your teacher told you to is really not the right answer. So they said. Don't state the obvious. Then don't open with a summary. If you find yourself saying, my essay is about, then you need to put a lid on that faster than you would last week's tuna casserole leftovers. You should show us what your essay is about, not tell us. How do you show what your essay is about? Well, it's simple. In theory, just make a connection to a larger event. Can you relate the past to something modern? Yeah, like that. It's like bringing old-fashioned back in style. There's always some way to make it work. Most importantly, have fun with it. Quote a song. Include some dialogue. Make a witty pop culture reference. Tell an anecdote. Just make sure it's relevant. Unlike those first 5 minutes of every Simpsons episode that really have nothing to do with what comes next.
Okay. I'm back. We're going to stop there. From a general statement about the topic to a question that you ask your reader to a historical reference, dialogue, a quote. Any of those are good ways to open your introduction and hook your reader. Does anyone have any questions so far about introductions? So, before I told you that the thesis, that fine point, the point at the end of the pyramid, is the most important and essential sentence of your essay. It provides the reader with a map to guide him or her through your work. It anticipates and refutes counter-arguments if you're writing an argument essay, right? The essay that you're writing this week is a profile. It's a little bit different. The essay that you're going to be submitting in 2 weeks will be more of a thesis than you realize. And I see, it will be more of a traditional essay. I see a spelling error right there, right? There's your English teacher. I'll have to repair that. So it anticipates and refutes counter-arguments. It avoids vague language like it seems, or first person, I believe, in my opinion. Now again, for this week's profile, different type of writing. Not that you don't have to have a thesis. I should be able to identify one towards the end of your introduction or towards the end of the second paragraph. We normally find it in a traditional essay at the end of an introduction. So again, the thesis should not be a statement like, in this paper I will discuss. In fact, in your next essay, not the profile, you'll be writing from third-person perspective, and we'll talk more about that in week 3. But you won't be using any first-person narration. None of this, I should never be in it, me should never be in it, my should never be in it. But these kinds of things, when you say I believe or in my opinion, just waters down and weakens the writing because it sounds like you're being very defensive. The entire paper is your opinion. So you don't have to put these little phrases before this. We know that this is your opinion. And then something that I think is new to most students, and I learned this in graduate school, is it should pass the so what, who cares test. And what do we mean by that? We mean that when you write a thesis, you don't only state what you're going to talk about, but you make it meaningful as to why the reader should care. So most people get the first part, and they'll say, um, owning a home is a big responsibility. Too vague. They've got the so what part, but who cares? I mean, we know that. So you have to give them a reason to care. It's almost like you leave the last part of that sentence or thesis off. So, that's where it's important that you test yourself and you say, I think I'm writing a thesis. This is the one key essential sentence in my essay. Did I state what I was going to talk about, and did I state why people should care? So thinking about that, I'm going to give you a little quiz. Good thesis or bad thesis? Everyone should exercise. Okay. Can you see the responses? This is not a good thesis. It's too vague. It's unfinished. It doesn't answer the who cares part of that question. Let's look at another one. Good thesis, bad thesis. Okay. The answer is A. This is a good thesis. It not only tells you why we should add exercise to our daily routine, but it gives us the reasons why, and this is why people should care. So this is a good thesis. You notice that the thesis statements that are better are usually longer, and that's almost always true. Good thesis, bad thesis. 50% are in. Okay. So the answer is A. This is a good thesis. Again, talking about alcohol consumption, that's the so what. And then the why is because we're concerned with personal health, such as weight gain, heart disease, and other complications. So this is a good thesis. It answers the so what, who cares test. One last one. No, actually, there's two. Almost the last one. Brianna, do you have a vote? There we go. Okay. So the majority of you said this is a bad thesis. And I'll tell you, at first, I was like, this looks like a good thesis, but it really isn't. It's a tricky one. Reading can develop a child's analytical mind. And you say, well, that grabs my attention. It says so what, but look at how you can improve it. Good thesis, bad thesis. Good job. Since I gave it away and said you could improve it. So, Kevin, all you have to do is hit A. There we go. Okay. So, reading develops a child's mind, and then it gives details about what you're going to be talking about. In fact, if you do this, here's a little trick. You will set up your paragraphs because you'll know I'm going to talk about these skills in the first paragraph. I'm going to talk about increasing vocabulary in the second, exposing them to new worlds in the third. So you're really developing a roadmap, not only for yourself, but for your reader. So the more specific you can be with your thesis, the better off you're going to be because you're really setting up the whole paper for yourself. Really important part of the essay. Do I have any questions on writing a thesis or how to determine if it's good or bad thesis?
Professor.
Yes. Hi, Wes.
In the beginning, in the beginning of this lecture, you talked about not giving away what you're going to write about in the beginning part of the paper, but now you're telling us to kind of outline that in our first paragraph.
Okay. So what I said was at the beginning, don't announce it. Don't tell them. In this paper, I will talk about how reading develops a child's mind. You see what I'm saying? That's what we don't want you to do. We don't want you to say, I will be doing this. What we do want you to say in the thesis is right what you say, reading develops a child's mind by fostering these skills and increasing vocabulary. So again, what we don't want is you announcing it by saying, I will discuss or I will write about the following. But, yeah.
Does that need to be said in the first paragraph or second paragraph, or does it really matter?
You mean this part, the thesis?
Yeah.
The thesis is normally at the end of the pyramid, the inverted pyramid, Wes, if you think of it that way. So it should be probably the last line or last two lines, because you might break it up, of your introduction.
Okay.
Does that make more sense?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Did I adequately explain the difference between what I said earlier about not announcing and then putting
I think I may have gotten lost in the translation.
That's okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any other questions? I'm happy to answer. Okay. So we'll move on to a blank screen. Anyone hungry? We're going to talk about body paragraphs in the context of a hamburger and thinking, so first we're talking about upside down pyramids, now we're talking about hamburgers, we'll get back to the pyramids again. So when we're writing, we like to think about those body paragraphs as its own little unique, almost a little essay unto itself. Okay? You want to start out with a topic sentence. So you've left your introduction, and now you're writing the first body paragraph. And you have to ask yourself, or at least I do, what do I want to talk about in this first body paragraph? And sometimes I'll put a heading on there. And then I'll delete the heading, for the final draft. But I think, well, here's what I'm going to talk about in paragraph 1, and here's what I'm going to talk about in paragraph 2, and so on. So I'll first start out by writing a heading, just to keep me on task. And then I write my topic sentence. The topic sentence will work off of the thesis. So if I could go back for a moment, let's just take one of these. Let's say I wanted to talk about increasing vocabulary. And I know that's going to be one of my paragraphs. The topic sentence, I should hear that word, increase in vocabulary. So you may talk about methods of increasing vocabulary and how, statistics that you found about how vocabulary increases when students read. You may put in examples. Again, what you don't want to do if you're writing an academic essay is not the profile that you're writing. A profile is kind of like an exercise in your descriptive writing and so forth. But in week 4, when you're writing an academic essay, you want to make sure that you have topic sentences, that you have a thesis statement, and that those things match up. So if you said in your introduction, I'm going to talk about increasing vocabulary and exposing new worlds, you know those are going to be your paragraphs. They should be reiterated in your topic sentence. So the topic sentence is working right off of the thesis. And what's going to go in here? Your explanations, your examples, your statistics, any quoted material that supports this topic sentence. And the topic sentence says, here is what this paragraph is about. The thesis states this is what the essay is about. The topic sentence says this is what the paragraph is about. Get the distinction? Thesis statement is the whole thing. The body paragraph topic sentence is just for that paragraph. Here's what I'm going to talk about in your paragraph. So if you're writing about increasing vocabulary and suddenly you shift into exposing them to new worlds and it's all in the same paragraph, I'm going to say you have an ununified paragraph. Why are you talking about two different things in one paragraph? So that's what we look for, the integrity, the unity of the body paragraph. We look for a topic sentence, we look for explanations, examples, and that you tie it back to your thesis. Any questions on body paragraphs? Okay. One thing I think students who are emerging as writers or haven't written for a long time fail to do in many cases are to use transitions through words and transitions through ideas. So you'll have transitions within your body paragraphs themselves, and then you'll have transitions among body paragraphs from one to the next. So they'll be internal, and then they'll be linking one paragraph or one idea to the next idea. So I'm going to watch a short video on this. I'm going to take off my headphones because I think that's what makes it very low. So tell me if you have any problem hearing.
We speak students.
Transitions, a la schmuck, not the contact lenses. You've probably spoken to someone at one time or another who didn't use transitions in their speech. It likely sounded something like this. I love hot dogs. Do you swim? Flowers are pretty, aren't they? How many pets do you have? I have to go to the bathroom. Sound like any 5-year-old you know?
What are you talking about? I've got it together.
Any lawyers? There may actually be some link between all these thoughts, but the world will never know, because that guy failed to use transitions. You can think of transitions as signposts that are scattered through your essay, which help your readers navigate the various ideas you introduce.
Good thing I changed into my comfy shoes.
They basically help make clear what one thing has to do with another, so your readers don't get lost, which is a good thing because they only have enough water to last them a few days. Your goal is to craft a paper that flows so smoothly that it isn't jarring when you go from one paragraph to the next. It should feel more like a steady stream of thought than a crashing waterfall of thought. There are two major types of transitions. Those that transition through words, and those that transition through ideas. Transition words indicate a relationship between a couple of ideas. So instead of, I was just bitten by a raccoon, I've had my shot, you could say, I was just bitten by a raccoon. However, I've had my shot. The sentence doesn't change much, but it's much clearer in the second example why you switch from talking about rabid woodland creatures to your medical history.
Eat 2 discarded banana peels and call me in the morning.
You're establishing a connection between the two. Transitions can show contrast with words like but, however, in contrast, or whereas. They can show similarity as in additionally, also, or similarly. Or they can demonstrate a sequence. First, second, next, subsequently, or previously. But you can also transition through ideas. See how we transition there? To transition through ideas, you can make a reference to a key phrase from earlier in your paper to draw a connection. And it doesn't have to be an exact repetition of a phrase. It can simply be a restating or further exploration of a topic that was brought up previously. For example, if you mention in paragraph 2 that cats and dogs are capable of feeling emotion,
This is my sad face, if you can believe it.
and then in paragraph 3 you talk about what a crime it is to abuse animals, you've created a transition.
Oi, my kishkas.
By using common or related words to make a connection between 2 different parts of your paper, you allow your reader to do some thinking for themselves.
I thought this was going to be my day off.
After all, readers don't want everything spoon-fed to them. Maybe just a little banana pudding after dinner, thank you.
Oi, my kishkas.
We see students.
Trends.
Okay. So, transitions, there's like a ton of places that you can search on Google. Just put in transition phrases, and it will give you a list of many websites that list your transition phrases. And they'll even tell you when to use them. Are you comparing and contrasting something? Are you putting something in a sequence? Are you making an argument? So you could find any of those online. If you can't, you can just email me and I will send you a list. So we're back at the pyramids. And here we are in Egypt. You didn't think you were going there tonight, but here we are. Now we're going to look at the conclusion. So we've dealt with the introduction, which was an inverted pyramid. We've dealt with the hamburger, that was the body paragraphs. And now we're looking at the conclusion where we right-side the pyramid. This is how you're used to seeing a pyramid. And we're working from the specific to the general, to the small point to the general statement, the broad-based general statement. This is the opposite of what we did in the introduction. So if you remember, if you could recall, in the upside-down pyramid that we had, the thesis was at the bottom, and Wes asked a great question. He said, would that be at the bottom of the introduction, or would it be in the second paragraph? Again, it's usually found at the end of your first paragraph. Well, we're going to find it again, restated in the conclusion, but it's going to be the very first line. So this sentence will sum up or summarize your thesis statement. I wouldn't put it in exactly the same terms, but you would put it in you would use the similar terms like vocabulary, exploring the world, etc. in that example that we were using. You also summarize the argument, and I want you to think of your essay, like I said before, is your personal opinion, whether you're writing about, I don't know, golf, or you're writing about the military, or you're writing about home furnishings. That whole essay that you give to me is really an argument for how you feel about the topic. So many times you'll say, well, it really isn't an argument. I didn't write anything, that is arguable or political in nature. No, but you'll sometimes see essays, the parts of the essays referred to as arguments. So you're going to summarize your arguments. What did you say? Give a brief summary of the reasons, the causes, the factors that relate to the topic of your paper. So this is really summarizing the body paragraphs. This is the thesis. You're restating that. Then you're going to kind of summarize the body paragraphs. And then you leave with a general statement. Again, this is leaving the audience with something to think about. What should they have learned? What did you want them to think more in depth about? Can you connect it to a wise old adage? Can you think about your essay in its totality and how it relates to the universe? So this is kind of the part where I tell students, this is where you make your audience cry. This is where they feel connected from what you wrote in your paper to their own lives and worlds. So as you can see, the whole essay writing process is really related. This is the flip side. The conclusion is the flip side of your introduction. And the only thing that's really new and different and expanded on are the body paragraphs that you write within. Do we have any questions on the conclusions? And let me give you a little test. I'm going to ask you to fill in the blanks. Oops, sorry about that. Can you see the quiz? Jessica, do you see the quiz on the screen? Thanks, Jessica. Okay, can everyone take their audio off of mute at this point? Okay. Okay, so are you able to take the quiz or did it fill it in for you?
I was able to take it.
Okay. So let's just go through the answers to this. An introduction is shaped like an inverted pyramid. What was the answer for number 2? A blank dictates the main idea of a paragraph. Anyone have the answer for that?
A topic sentence.
Right? The thesis answers, what are the 2 questions?
Who cares and so what?
Nice. In a conclusion, what is restated?
The thesis.
Nice. A good conclusion looks like a?
Pyramid.
You got it. Transition words connect. How about Wes? Do you have the answer to that one, number 6?
I don't know, paragraphs and ideas.
Ideas and paragraphs, nice. And body paragraphs include, how about Brianna? Do you have the answer to that one? Okay, so the answer to 7, anyone else have it?
Examples and explanations.
You got it. So right now we're going to click out of Nearpod and we're just going to take a look at, sorry about that, we're going to take a look in the class at what's coming up this week. Now, obviously, we're talking about the profile genre and getting started writing, and we've already begun in the discussions. They're up and running, so if you haven't participated, please make sure that you do. Also, because you're on this phone call, you will only be responsible for responding to 2 or posting twice in the profile genre and twice in getting started writing. If I forget, which I hope I don't again, I just send me an email and say, remember I was at the huddle session, and I'll make sure that I change your grade right away. So this week's profile essay, have any of you started writing it?
No.
No, yes, yes. Summer, you have already, and Wes, you have. Are you running into any problems?
I've got to redo it now.
You know what? That makes me feel good that I taught something tonight. Well, let's talk about, the profile essay. If you look at Wilkinson's profile essay, if you've read that already, you know that it's a little bit different than an essay. It's not a traditional academic essay. So, Wes, there is a little bit more freedom to it. But, if you're unsure that you're proficient at writing, maybe this isn't your thing, and this goes to anybody in the class, maybe you want to stick to that essay outline that I gave you, where you have that strong thesis statement, where you have the hook. Obviously, that should be in any essay, and that you have paragraphs that are sensible. If they were talking about Dave Grohl being in Nirvana in one paragraph, at the same time they're talking about his wife and kids, that's very confusing. So there are a lot of things in that lesson that I taught you that are just, go into quality writing. You want to have unified paragraphs. You want to only be talking about one thing at a time. You want to try to tie back through your transitions some of the ideas that you used before or intend to use ahead. But I think the strongest part of this is going to be the hook. How do you get us interested in your essay when you're writing about so many different things? And I wish we could share with each other all of the great ideas that are coming out of this profile, because when I went through them, no two were the same. Nobody's writing about the same person, place, or thing. So it's going to be really interesting reading. It's 2 to 3 double-spaced pages. You're going to use Microsoft Word. If you use anything else that's not Word compatible, I can't read it. 12-point font and APA cover page. Do any of you have questions on that? There's a very cool site called easybib.com. And have any of you used this before?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have the APA one?
Yes.
Okay. So I think if it's still the rule here, you have to pay for APA. I don't own stock in this. We do have Noodle Tools, which will do a very good job as well. But this is a really good site I used all through college, was EasyBib. And they should have an APA generator for the title page. I'm just trying to see if it's available for free or not. So just give me a second while I check that out.
What do we use it? Citation machine or something?
What's that?
My fiance and I use one that's called Citation Machine.
Yeah, Citation Machine's okay.
Yeah.
This one's a little better in terms of its. I'll look it up. I'll see if they have the title page generator. They have it for MLA. I'm not sure if they have it for APA, but that's a good one too. The Citation Machine as well. There's a couple out there. What I like about EasyBib is it will save all your stuff for you. I'm not sure if Citation Machine does. The functionalities are always changing. So like I said, in week 4, we're going to have a more traditional essay, and this is going to come in really handy for you at that time. But still, you can think about what we did today and take that away and use that as you're writing your profiles. Any other questions? All right. I thank you all for coming tonight, and this is going to be recorded, so if there are parts of it you want to go over again, it will be released to you. Hi, Wes. You raised your hand? He just had to.
Push the buttons.
That's great. Thanks for coming. We'll have another one next week, and hopefully you can make it.
Thank
See you,
you.
Professor.
Good night.
Take care.